Hello and welcome to the ProjectWise Administrator Advanced Accreditation course on Enhanced Environments. This is part one of a two-part series for the document code section of the course, covering the parts and creation of a document code. In this section of the course, ProjectWise document code components will be reviewed, and a ProjectWise document code will be created using the Creation Wizard. The benefits of using document coding are: document code will describe the content and/or purpose of the document stored in ProjectWise. For example, a code part can categorize all documents that were used for meeting minutes, email correspondence, or reports. The document code part will help identify how documents are related to other documents, such as a document code part could help identify all documents that belong to a specific section or area of a project. A standard document code format made up of parts can keep documents organized or categorized, making it easier to identify them. Document code can extend the native ProjectWise search capabilities to include searching of specific values stored in the code parts. Having a standard document code can enforce the use of proper document naming convention for data added to the ProjectWise environment. During this course, you will learn the use of a document code in the ProjectWise environments, preparation steps for defining a document code part requirements and restrictions, how to create a document code using the Define Document Code Wizard, and how to adjust Document Creation Wizard labels. So now let's look at what is a document code. A document code is a unique identifier for documents stored within ProjectWise environment. There can be only one code definition. Only one code definition is supported within a ProjectWise environment. A code can be made up of many parts. Each part is an attribute in ProjectWise. So if we look at this example code, the code is multiple parts, in this case 7. We're using a project number, company, role, zone, type, location, and a generated serial number to represent the document code. We're also using underscores as a delimiter to separate the parts of the document code. This would be a real-world example of this particular code. To create a document code in ProjectWise, you must use the Document Code Definition Wizard in ProjectWise Administrator. This wizard defines the required attributes that make up the document code, defines if the code will be serialized, meaning a auto-generated serial number will be appended, and the attribute to store that number. It'll define the attribute to store the completed code. It can define additional or optional attributes that are not required to be included in the code, and also defines the delimiters to be used to separate code parts. Users will enter the document code using the Advanced Document Creation Wizard in ProjectWise Explorer. The first step before creating a document code is to gather all the requirements for the document code. The parts, data type, size, whether the entry is required or will allow null values, whether the parts will be serialized, meaning all the parts gathered will be used to generate the next available serial number. The order the parts will be shown, and a delimited character used to separate the parts. This process should be driven by discovering what type data the business will be storing in ProjectWise. Once the business requirements have been gathered, then you can create all the attributes that will hold the individual parts of the code, create an attribute to store the generated serial number, and create the attribute to store the final code value. Presented here is a table showing the attributes and their properties that are associated with each part of the document code that will be used in this training course. This table is an example of the information that should be collected during the preparation phase. There will be 9 attributes created to support the document code. 8 of the attributes will be used as parts for the code, and the 9th attribute will be the attribute to store the completed code. The parts of the code will be project, originator, area, zone, document type, document level, sequence, and an optional sheet number. The attribute to store the completed code is doc_code. On the environment's standard interface, each code will have a friendly label for users to be able to understand which data is being requested. In the table, we also identify which of the parts are required, which ones are serial, which ones are optional, and the placeholder attribute for storing the document code. Next, we identify which parts will be used to generate the next available serial number. The table identifies the type of attribute, the size of the attribute, whether the attribute is allowing null or empty characters, the character to be used to separate the part, and we also identify if the user is allowed to make a change to the attribute. Normally, this would be read-only on the interface to ensure the users use the document creation wizard for entering codes. Before we continue, let's discuss some document code requirements and restrictions, mainly around applying a new or updating an existing document code for an environment that already contains ProjectWise attributed documents. By default, each part of the document code is set to not allow null values. So after applying a new document code, an error may be presented stating that data is missing. There are two common ways to address this issue. First, you can update all null valued attributes that will be part of the document code using the modify or the Excel export import tool. If document versions exist in the data source, PowerShell would have to be used to make the modifications for the documents that have versions. Alternately, in the document code definition wizard, you can set all or some parts of the document code to allow null values. However, be cautious because if you set all parts to allow null values, users can bypass entering document codes when documents are created. Now let's go through each of the 8 dialogues for the document code definition wizard. To access the document code definition wizard, right-click on a named environment within ProjectWise Administrator, then choose Define Document Code. The first dialog presented is the Document Code Definition Wizard Welcome dialog. The next dialog, there are two options for choosing the document code type dialog. One is Yes, which defines a serial number for the environment, or No, do not define a serial number. The common practice is yes, to use a serial number in the document code to ensure it creates a unique code for all documents stored in the environment. If a serial number is going to be used for the document code definition, then a text attribute should be created to store that serial number. The attribute needs to be text to allow for leading zeros in the serial number. If a serial number will not be used, then the document code definition parts must always be able to generate a unique code for every document added to the environment. For this course, we're going to answer yes to use serial numbers. The next dialog, defining serial number context, will only appear if the previous dialog was answered yes to use a serial number. In this dialog, select all parts that will be used in the generation of a unique serial number for every document added to the environment. The combined values of these attribute parts will dictate whether the next serial number generated is incremented from the previous value or the serial number starts back at 1. For example, the first document in the environment was created using the code parts AM RPT MCO, which the serial number generated was 00001. A new document was added to the environment with the same code parts, so the serial number generated was 00002. Another document was created in the environment with EU RPT MCO, which did not match any other previous created document, so its generated serial number is 00001. In this course, the attributes area, document level and type, originator, project number, and zone will be used when generating the next available serial number. This dialog defining serial number will only appear if the earlier dialog was answered yes to use a serial number. In this dialog, select the text attribute to store the generated serial number. In this course, the sequence attribute will be used for storing the serial number. The next dialog, select other code parts, is requesting any additional attributes that will make up the document code, but these code parts will not be used in generating the serial number. If no serial number was chosen earlier, this would be the next dialog presented. Understand that attributes selected in this dialog will be primary code parts. In a later dialog, additional non-required parts can be defined. For this course, no additional code parts will be added. The next dialog, defining placeholder, has two options. Yes, to store the generated document code in an attribute, or no, do not store the document code. Traditionally, the answer would be yes to store the document code. A text attribute should be created to store the document code with enough characters to support the longest code combination. Don't forget to add characters for the serial number and delimiter characters. Storing the general document code can be helpful in adding to views for reports and extend document searchability. The next dialog, defining additional attributes, is requesting if additional attributes should be included as secondary parts in the document code. Secondary parts are not required and appended to the document code only if data is entered. They appear in the document creation wizard below the primary parts, separated by a thick horizontal line. If using serial numbers, they become activated for data entry after a serial number has been generated. In this course, the sheet number attribute will be used as an additional part to the document code. The last dialog, defining document code formatting, will be used to 1. Order the document code parts, highlight and sort the code parts on how the document code will be generated, then click the move up and down buttons to change the order. If multiple secondary additional parts were chosen, those can also be sorted, but they can never be mixed within the primary parts. Second, add pre-appended delimiter characters for document code parts. There is a selection of delimiter characters in the drop-down list, but other characters can be manually entered by typing them in. Highlight the part to pre-append with the character, and then select or enter the character to be used as a delimiter. Third, allow empty null values. Highlighting a code part and checking this option will instruct the document code wizard to not perform a validation check for existing documents in the environment to make sure that they have valid values already populated for this attribute. If left unchecked, the wizard will perform this validation check, and the document creation wizard in ProjectWise Explorer will not allow a document to be created without entering valid data for this attribute. Fourth, exclude from unique ID. This checkbox allows the administrator to change document code parts added to the Select Other Code Parts dialog from being included in the generated unique ID. Lastly, after making selections, there is a preview showing an example of what the completed document code will look like after generated. After clicking Next on the last dialog, the Define Document Code wizard will validate entries, making sure the proper attribute types were selected for storing generated serial numbers and document code. Existing documents contain valid entries if not allowing empty or null values. If all validation checks pass, the placeholder attribute, if was selected, will be populated with the document code for any existing attributed documents. There is a warning that previously created document code restrictions may no longer be valid if changes were made. Document code restrictions will be covered in the next part of this course. The defined document code wizard can be relaunched anytime and will be pre-populated with all previously entered selections. After creating the document code definition in ProjectWise Administrator, there is no preview option to see how the form appears for a user entering the code parts. To test the document code, ProjectWise Explorer must be used, creating a document using the Advanced Document Creation Wizard. When testing the Advanced Document Creation Wizard, the table field or column names show up instead of friendly names. This is due to the active interface not having the document code parts included with friendly names. To correct this, add the attributes from the document code parts to all or a common appropriate interface. Update the attributes interface label text to display a more appropriate friendly name for users to understand what should be entered. For exercise 1 in this course, we'll be creating a document code. The first step is updating the existing My Company environment. We'll set all document code parts to have an underscore for the delimiter, and we'll use this table for all the modifications to the existing document code definition for this environment. The changes are identified in the action column of the table. Let's go into ProjectWise Administrator and make these changes. After logging into the ProjectWise data source, expand Environments and right-click My Company and choose Define Document Code. Click Next. The previously code definition options are already going to be populated. We are making changes to an existing document code. Click Next. In the instructions in the table, we want to add originator and zone. These are going to be required attributes for the document code. Click Next. The serial number will still be stored in the sequence attribute. Click Next. We'll add no additional code parts. Click Next. We'll continue to store the document code in the attribute doc code. Click Next. We'll continue to use sheet number as an optional attribute. Click Next. Now we want to ensure the order of the document code is project, originator, area, zone, doc type, doc level, and sequence. All the parts have underscores for delimiter. Now click Next and Finish to save changes. Also instructed in the table is to make sure the label names are correct on the interface. Expand My Company, Attribute Layouts, Standard, then highlight Attributes tab. Per the table, let's make sure the originator attribute under Editing, the format stream is uppercase. The area attribute, we want to change the interface name to be role. For zone, we want to change the interface name to be zone/system. For the document type, we want the interface name to just be type. And for document level, we want the interface text to be location/level. Now those are all the edits that the table is requesting. So let's check our changes in ProjectWise Explorer. I've logged into the data source as a project manager, navigated to a test folder, ensure that the test folder is assigned to the environment name My Company. Make sure that the interface is set to standard. Now let's create a new document using the Advanced Wizard. And this is a test document, so any document can be chosen. And what we want to verify is that the names have been changed, role, zone, and location have been updated. Now selecting the data and generating a sequence, we can see that the delimiter is an underscore between each part. So our changes were successful. This concludes the first part of Enhanced Environments for Document Code, covering the parts and creation of a document code. Let's review what has been learned. During this course, you have learned the use of a document code in ProjectWise environments, preparation steps for defining a document code parts, requirements, and restrictions, how to create a code using the Define Document Code Wizard, how to adjust document creation wizard labels. The next section of the ProjectWise Administrator Advanced Accreditation course will cover use of document code restrictions within a ProjectWise environment.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.